Someone dropped off, and Thomas is a very he's doing some ML hardware stuff. They're really involved in serving a lot of these diffusion type models. But anyways, it's great to have everyone here.
We got chips.
We've got a Thomas
we got
sandwich.
Cloud, and we've got community, and we've got GigaBrain analyst.
But I think like it'd be great to sort of like define like what is a neural operating system? What do you think like neural networks are going to redefine computing? All the content we consume is going to be generated by AI. We already see Spanish fake Instagram models that have millions of followers and are like making tons of money promoting products that aren't even real, or like using all generated images. But what really is going on, I think, in the future in the neural operating system?
So I think that it's interesting because maybe the generated content is a good analogy for what's happening in the software land, which is to say that today, you start with generated images, then you have generated video, and then eventually it's going to be sort of these real-time generated hallucinations that you kind of enter into in VR or something. But the way that it's kind of going to change software, I think, is that today everybody's talking about these advances wrong. We're talking about how large language models can generate human code. So you're going to generate some brittle Python code or C code or JavaScript, and it can have errors. It can have a missing comma or missing semicolon and not compile or not interpret. And the future, I think, is not having your neural networks generate human code, but to become the software that you'd like to see. And that type of software you can think of as what we call neural software, which would be a basic example of this is if everyone here has used the Google Translate application where you can choose a language and then you can speak into it and it speaks back. Well, you can basically quote unquote program that neural program with ChatGPT voice mode by just saying, translate whatever I say in English into let's say Arabic and vice versa. And that prompt sort of creates a piece of software that you can interact with. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of that type of software over the next couple of decades.
And today we see the early stages of sort of like model proliferation, especially on the generative image side and generative language model side. There's I want to say there's like millions of stable diffusion fine tunes on Hugging Face today. Each of these is like a different sort of interface for generating what people actually want to interact with.
Yeah, I think that's now the perfect way people create things. So I was watching this Clean AI amazing video the other day, and they explain basically what they do is that they film around, they generate a full like 360 view of a character, and then they fine-tune a flux. So that's the new version of Stable Diffusion. Sadly, we miss Robin. It would have been amazing to just explain what Flux is. But basically, that's the new open source image generation models, and you can fine tune these so that basically they incorporate what is this character that you want to film. So this has become kind of a standard part of the workflow when you want to create like consistent movies where the character don't change shapes all the time, like we used to have on the early AI movies. I was a judge last year, and I remember how it was quite funny to see characters fully changing around the movie. So I think part of it is this type of live fine-tuning, which is important in image. So obviously, it doesn't really fit so well with the vision of a program. You would like to not have to fine-tune the model. If you want the model to generate like a live program, you don't want to have like a training loop in between. I don't know how you see that, but basically you want this. At some point, it might be that basically it's just a temporary state where we still need to fine-tune models somehow, and maybe at some point we just won't need this anymore.
Well, I think that it actually gets to the point of like really what you want is like spatial temporally consistent videos, for example, and that's what you're talking about. Having a character that gets uploaded into it. So I actually think that the way that that's going to eventually exhibit itself is that you're not going to have a fine-tuning step. You're just going to have a prompting step, which has a series of other videos that you can say, hey, this is the character. Maybe it's just me taking an iPhone around your head or around your body, or of seeing you move and talk, and using that as a prompt, and then that way, I think that is where the future of the video generation stuff is going, and probably also thus will be repurposed for use in software.
And we're already sort of seeing that when it comes to the audio side of things. So there's some really fantastic new text-to-speech models that have been released, as open source, that are beating, state of the art from the closed source labs that have as a core feature voice cloning built in, where you provide 5-10 seconds of audio of any speaker that you want, and fidelity would totally fool me, on a live video call.
For those models, is it something where it's actually updating the weights, or is it just setting up in prompts?
Yeah, this is all in context. So, but that brings up the good point of, while today actually doing that fine tuning is a real, relatively expensive process compared to just, doing inference of the model. Probably to get the fidelity that we all want to see in the future with things, and to be able to have truly live learning machines, we need to have continuous learning is probably that real holy grail that we're all still waiting for.
I think setting the stage back a little bit, right, is today we have voice cloning is very simple and easy. Live audio voice models are pervasive. Voice agents, right? That's actually something that's been working for roughly 6 months to a year. You have image generation side. People can generate images very rapidly. But then on the video generation side, Midjourney just finally released the first video model that can generate scenes in 2 to 3 seconds. We haven't gotten to the point where live video is possible fully. Although there have been a few demos, right? There's been I don't know if you've seen the Minecraft video, right? Where someone trained a model on all the YouTube content of Minecraft, and now you can input into it. You can walk around the game of Minecraft, but it's generating the scene rather than actually playing the model. And then you have this on, across all the domains, you have the early sparks of generative interface. But sort of over time, I think, as you combine the modalities and these things get fast enough as well as high enough fidelity where you can and you can maintain the state, right? That's the other aspect of this that's really difficult is, in these generative video models.
Yeah, you look down and then you look back up and you're in the desert, and you look down, you look back up and you're on the beach, and you look down, you look back up, and there's no consistency in the sort of
there's a lot of science problems there.
Yeah, there is a fun future, just thinking out loud, because you make me think about the new startup idea, so I'm just sharing it so someone can build it. But right now, the way we vibe code is we write this, then we generate code, then we have the interface, But we should have a video model we just interact with that just live generate the interface, and we click and it guesses what we want to do.
Well, but I think that's where it's going. It's it's multimodal. It's multimodal. Yeah. So it's increasing not just video models, but also sort of aligning the audio output such that it's generating the audio. And then also, it's another modality. A major modality is computer gaming hardware input. So, your game controller, your Xbox controller. And actually, this is a super interesting, the video that everyone here should look up eventually is Alex Graves, who's a very well-known researcher from DeepMind, originally did some great stuff with what's called the DNC. It was the Deep Neural Computer, I think. And the point is that what he showed in one of his earlier works when they were training on some Atari games is that they could hallucinate what the RL agent was seeing when it was playing an Atari game, and they could say, okay, well, they could go into a neural network's dream, and it would hallucinate, okay, well, the controller goes left, the controller goes right, and whatever. But then what they could do is that they could condition the hallucination on true controller output. So what they did is that instead of having it hallucinate what it thinks the controller should be, it allows the player to input the controller left, right, A, B. And that essentially is an example of adding that modality of control into that hallucination. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more of that kind of stuff with these world models like the Minecraft.
What I would actually go back to, a bit earlier than any of the new advancements on video side, is actually like one of the first viral applications for LLMs before ChatGPT. Like when OpenAI originally released the GPT-3 API back in 2020, one of the first apps of it was a thing called AI Dungeon. And the intent of it was, you have the LLM be the dungeon master in a Dungeon and Dragons sort of game. But the funny thing that myself and a lot of other people used it for was actually telling it, where the dungeon master, to actually role play being a command line interface. So the dungeon master, its prompt was be Ubuntu 2004 and act as responses to my inputs that are imprompts to a terminal.
And we're in Europe, and so it's nearby Germany. So it was, of course, used as an AI sex dungeon, actually, for most of the users who are using this AI Dungeon app. But beyond that, it was also used for other types of role-playing with like Dungeons and Dragons style.
But if you think about any of these like NeuralOS capabilities, like fundamentally we're asking the model in this case to be role-playing, at least in an initial version, the role of, a computer interface. And then it's adding these additional modalities on top of it. And it really shifts then the idea of the software that's running on that isn't actually programmed software. It's not something that you write C++ or Python and that's an application executing, through an interpreter or that it's compiled, but it's actually a, neural network that believes that it is a computer executing the concept of a program.
I think the important thing, like again, like zooming back out, is like each paradigm of computing, we've had a dramatic shift in the input method. Sort of when you go back to sort of the 60s and forward, there's punch cards, but then it became, people were working on command line type interfaces. Then it became GUIs, mouse driven, right? And sort of like my generation was a lot of like sort of the mouse-driven UI, right? The next generation after me, sort of like the sort of they're all like touch interface, right? They're touching iPads. They don't actually understand like the normal way to use computers that we've all sort of seen, but like sort of the young kids are all only know about like touching iPads and like how the touch interface is. But neural networks as an input method are going to dramatically change how we interact with computers as well, right? Because at the end of the day, it's for content, it's for fun, it's for generating content, it's for doing useful work. Whatever it is, the input method dramatically changes when it stops being, hey, I'm interacting with elements that are programmatically defined, but instead I am saying what I want, and the model understands and tries to manifest that into reality, right? And so this is sort of whether it is UIs that are being generated on the live, whether it's sort of you have AR glasses that have a voice as the modality and it sees everything you see and you have voice as the modality. The important thing to think about is the next sort of big wave with AI on the what AI will do to the computer interface. And how humans interact with computers is going to be drastically different, right? It's sort of like you see those little kids interacting with Alexa and telling Alexa to play music. That's just the start of it, right? It's actually going to be much more pervasive where people won't even understand or won't even interact with touchscreens generally, right? Because the semantic understanding of these models drastically shifts how we use computers.
I think it's usually evolving the same way. We start by copying what we had. If you remember the first GUI, they were like copy. You see this the physical dustbin, like the physical, floppy disk and all of this. And then you see the interface has like buttons that really look like 3D button. And then we evolve, we make this simpler. We kind of start, move like more semantically related thing. And so here I see we probably still like copy, all games we train on Minecraft, so it all looks like Minecraft. We train on GUI, so it all looks like the current thing. But then we'll move to a next stage where we kind of free ourselves of this kind of historical thing and make a crazy game where things are evolving while we go. And you cannot build that in 3D right now because the software does not allow, but neural net kind of allow you to do this type of crazy things. So that will be very exciting.
We have the signal for 1 minute left. This is the most unhinged panel I've ever been on. We have to take it up another level. What's the craziest take you have, Steven?
Well, I think the craziest take that I have, and it's funny, by the way, I totally agree with you, and it's interesting because we're like kind of, still even talking about this like neural software, neural operating systems, when like that stuff won't exist 30 years from now, right? Because we'll have a new way of thinking about it. I think the craziest thing is that as this stuff gets better, and you can think about this as being more the level of human intelligence that's locked inside of a computer, and that's what these like large models are that we're building. I think that the craziest thing is probably like the problems that we're going to run into when your computer falls in love with somebody else's computer, or when people are trying to adopt children and they're putting as the other parent some sort of their computer. So those are some of the crazy ones.
If your cloud doesn't work out, you should just like start making Black Mirror episodes. I think we're at time. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to our crazy thoughts.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.